Hey YouTube, this is Troy. Well, in past videos, I made reference to a 30-gallon that I had up. This is it. It is quite the debacle, but I'll explain its intent. Basically, I had probably about 40 pounds of dry rock that I had from about 3 years ago when this tank was up and running, that I had originally purchased as live rock when I was setting this tank up. And I have some pretty nice pieces. You really can't tell because it's just a mess, but I have some pretty nice large pieces in there, and I wanted to reuse it in the 90 that I'm setting up or working on getting set up. And I wanted to basically seed them with coralline algae. And so what I did is I went out and bought just a small little, 15-pound Nano Reef live rock package, and threw it all in here. And it's starting to do its job. I mean, it's been in here probably for about 4 or 5 months. And it's starting to seed out, and once I move this rock over, hopefully it'll have a little kickstart. Now, the majority of the rock going in the 90 is going to be dry rock. It's going to be ordered here in a little bit, and I'll do some reef scape or some scaping with that dry rock because obviously it's easy because it's dry. And then I'll incorporate some of this rock into that 90-gallon tank when it's getting set up. But what I wanted to talk about is some of the good and the bad with what I experienced with my purchase. You really aren't going to be able to tell very well with my crappy camera. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to live with my crappy camera, and so are you until I get the 90 up, and then I'll definitely buy a good camera. So it's not my phone. But so back to the live rock. So you hear a lot of people say, "Hey, start your tank off with dry rock, use live rock." I think you can go either way. When I was setting up, in the past, I had a 125-gallon tank, and I used all live rock. Bought it all over the internet. Had really good success with that. I mean, all the horror stories you hear with buying live rock, didn't really culture the live rock. I just basically said, all right, I'm going to use it to cycle. It's got some kill off through the shipping process. I'm going to go ahead and throw it in my tank. It's going to help me cycle. Boom, and it did, and it worked great. And I've had great success with it in the past. And then came this little 15-pound package, which is mostly just, you can consider a bunch of little rubble. Most of what you see in the front of the tank, and granted, this is just a hodgepodge. It's not, by the way, not how you scape a tank. I'm assuming you guys can kind of look at this and tell that two things are wrong with this. One is it's far too much rock for the size of the tank I have here. And two, it's just piled all over the place. It is a bare bottom, but still, there's definitely not enough water movement on the lower half of this tank. I could not keep this tank set up this way for an extended period of time. I'd more than likely have problems. It has hardly any bio load in it right now. I have one, you probably see it, maybe picks up on the camera. I have one orchid dotty back in there. It's doing great, but that's the only fish in here. And I have a little cleanup crew, but other than that, that's it. So back to the live rock. When I got the live rock, some of it looked really good. It has, some, I just cleaned the glass, so a lot of it has retreated. But, you get a couple mushrooms. You might get a rock with a polyp or two. I had a rock that had quite a bit of xenia on it. So that's nice. But then I also got some bubble algae. I also got some Aiptasia, and worst of all, I got flatworms, and I've never had flatworms before in all my times in the hobby, and so I really didn't even know what I was looking at. I thought it was some kind of algae bloom or something. I mean, they kind of looked like flat little, almost spores of you could interpret it as little spores of plants, but or some kind of algae. But after it started covering all the rock, I took a little bit more time to research it and find out I have flatworms. And flatworms suck. And if you see a flatworm, it's basically it's not really big, but they're brown, reddish, flat, small little specks that cover your rock. You will notice they might wiggle a little bit. They don't move very fast when they're not under duress. Research that and figure out what you have, and if you have flatworms, treat it immediately before they populate like freaking rabbits. So by the time I had it, luckily there's not really anything in this tank, but most of what you use to treat flatworms is not necessarily toxic to any of your inhabitants, but when you kill the flatworms excrete toxins, and then that can end up killing off everything in your tank. So they, if you ever buy that, I think I used flatworm exit or something along those lines. Read the instructions very carefully. Siphon all of them out as much as you can. I had to dose it twice to make sure I got rid of it. It's been probably 2 months. Haven't had any of it since then. So, but I did get some nice things. I got some nice. You definitely get enough. You get some good bristle worms. You get some good critters. But man, I had some bad ones with this last batch. So. Not necessarily trying to scare you off from live rock. There's definitely some benefits to it, but kind of go in with eyes wide open. You never know what you're going to get. Fortunate for me, I can treat everything in this little 30-gallon tank before it moves on to my 90. I am going to use dry rock outside of what you see in this tank in that 90. I had planned on doing it from the get-go. It's not necessarily the experience I went through that kind of pushed me to that decision, but that's kind of where I'm going to now. So this 90 is going to get ripped down when I get this 90, this 30-gallon tank will get tore down when the 90 comes up. It just takes up way too much room. It's actually in my utility room here. I'll back up here. So you can see my RODI. And then water storage there. And I'm basically, this whole wall here is going to be, freshwater storage, saltwater storage, probably a little 10-gallon for an, basically a hospital tank or a quarantine tank. This 30, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've definitely been watching a lot of Planet Tank videos on YouTube. I've never done it. There's some awesome tanks out there, and it's quite intriguing. I may do that with this 30, but I'm not sure. So this is, really all I got running on here is a couple compact fluorescent bulbs with that one fixture. I got a little hang-on-the-back skimmer, and then I got just a... I don't know what it is in the back, some kind of, the typical hang-on-the-back filter that's got some Chemi Pure Elite, and that's basically all I'm running in here. So, just packed with rock and just a jumbled mess, but a couple power heads, heater, that's about it. So, but it's been up for about 6 months. I'm really having any problems with it, but there's really, it's pretty simple. So, but yeah, so I just wanted to kind of, I know I mentioned it a couple times. That's what it is. That's what I'm using it for. Culture some of my old dry rock. And I don't know. Let's see if I can get you. See if my camera actually picks up anything that's worth a while. Let's see if it'll focus. Got a couple mushrooms right there. Got a little zoa right there. It looks like. in the center of the picture. It's got some coralline on it. It's kind of growing out. There's a lot of coralline on this. I just cleaned the glass, so that's a bunch of. Actually, that's Xenia right there. That's a Zoa over there that I was at before, but that's a bunch of Xenia, and then it's kind of slowly but surely coming along, but I figure there's probably a good 4 months before the 90 actually gets water and any kind of anything live in it, so I'll give it a few more months to grow out, but yeah, that's all I got. Later.